So today we want to welcome to Vica and Sasha from Feminist Translocalities, and also everyone listening. It's so nice to have you all with us. But before we start the conversation, we just want to have some accessibility measures and go through a little bit of those. So my name is Nisia Marsh, and I'm one of the co-founders and co-directors of Feminist Culture House, and my pronouns are she and her. And I'm a Black person wearing a white and navy striped shirt. I have some silver jewelry on, and I also have long brown hair, which is braided at the moment.
Okay, I can be next. So I'm Orla Noftonen. I'm also one of the co-founders and co-directors of Feminist Culture House. My pronouns are they and them. I'm a white person with short hair and black rimmed glasses, and today I'm wearing a black cap and a black hoodie. Sasha, next.
Hello everyone, my name is Sasha or Sandra. My pronouns is she or her, and I'm a white young woman, and I have short cut, and I'm wearing pink short t-shirt.
I'm Vica. I'm a white, relatively young woman with short hair, which is reddish, but it's not that visible. And I am wearing a blue sweater, and I'm sitting in front of a Ukrainian flag because I'm at my friends who have roots in Ukraine, so I have some yellow and blue things behind me. And my pronouns are she or no pronoun. In German it works very well. In English I don't know, but we'll see. But I'm also fine with she.
And also we have our colleague Katie Linton, who's working in the background on the technical side. Hi. So we're Feminist Culture House, and we're an intersectional feminist organisation that works with and for underrepresented artists, and we're based in Helsinki, Finland.
This conversation is part of our exhibition, What's the Use of Intersectionality, that we've been curating and producing for Stoa Culture House in Helsinki. Sorry, Stoa Culture Center. I always get this confused. We had, or are still having, this exhibition outside of Stoa. There's some flags in the flag poles of Stoa, and then some like a backdrop on the courtyard. And these video conversations have been happening throughout May, and now this is the last one that we're having with the Feminist Translocalities.
So now I'm just going to quickly introduce you to Feminist Translocalities, and then we can start the conversation. So Feminist Translocalities is an online magazine, printed zine and traveling exhibition. It focuses on the questions of coloniality, decolonization, globally and in the former USSR, as well as on intersections of feminism and other discriminations, so racism, ableism, homophobia. The website also includes a section, Feminist Utopias, a set of statements about what a feminist future might look like, which were sent to us by activists from different countries. Feminist Translocalities traveling exhibition was created specifically for the context of Russia. It looks at the inclusivity of the usual understanding of the history of women's movement in DDR and UDSSR, Black women and women of colour, migrant workers, trans persons, non-heterosexual women, and the exhibition looks at their role in the stories of resistance. So with us today we have Vica, the pronouns she, as she just mentioned, is a feminist researcher and curatorial worker born in, and I'm going to ask you to say this before I make it horrible.
Yeah, Smolensk. Yeah, and sorry for this UdSSR. It comes from my German text. It's USSR in English, and UdSSR in German. My mistake.
That's okay. Her research interests revolve around the intersections of feminism, anti-racist, and decolonial struggles in the countries of the former USSR. We also have Sasha with us, who is a researcher of Islamic feminisms, Muslim theology in different societies, and local women's history in Tatarstan. The main themes in her research interests are gender, Muslim women, and the relationships between discourses of power and marginality.
And just before we dive into the questions, I have to say that the conversation will be documented by artists Simi Ruotsalainen, and you can see their work later on our website and Instagram. But now, finally, so nice to have you with us, Sasha and Vica. Really happy that you took this time to talk to us and tell us about your work. And we thought that it would be nice to start with just like a very basic question of why did you start Feminist Translocalities, and when did that happen?
Maybe I would be answering and then showing some things from the portal and the exhibition as well at the same time, so that we will just do this. So I will share my screen now, and I will say what our roles are. I did this kind of the whole portal that I will be showing now, and also kind of did coordination work in assembling things which we then had in the exhibitions. And in every city in Russia where we had the exhibition, we had a team who curated it, and Sasha was curator in Kazan and also a contributor to our platform with a thing which I will show later. And now I'm showing the platform which we have. It's kind of easily updated when you just send something to me right now, because we don't have a big editorial team or a format where you can self-upload, but people are still sending us things, and we publish new publications. And I created it because I also am employed in an NGO, and I got a grant which was originally aimed for offline networking of activists. But then the pandemic happened, and we had to think how we can shift it, and I decided to materially support fellow activists and artists with allowing them the space to publish for money and illustrate articles which were sent to us, and that's how kind of it developed. But now it exists as a thing which is independent of that grant that we had back then. And we have different topics here, but my own interest of creating the whole thing was connected to my research interests. So I wanted to see how feminist thinking in the former USSR intersects with the logics of other discriminations and their critiques. So we have a historical part here, which is connected to decolonizing the history of the former USSR. And here, for example, we have a publication, Islamic Feminism in the Russian Empire, which was done by Sasha and illustrated by Diana, her colleague. And we touch on kind of different questions from a more academic perspective, like here, for example, in Nacionalka, which is a summary of a book by a researcher, or we make it in a less academic way, like in the text about Vica Kravtsova, or for example, in the text about Gulnara Bikirova, which are written by activist academics. We also have artworks sometimes, which we publish and then describe. For example, here is a documentation of a photo series by an artist from Kalmykia, and here's an interview with her as well. But we kind of also then exhibited this artworks live when we had an exhibition, but on the portal it's in this format. We have here also some content from Germany, because I myself am based in Berlin, and this project which we made was also a conversation between Germany and kind of because of the legacy of DDR and the Soviet, the post-Soviet space because of the legacy of the Soviet Union. And so in the exhibition, which was supported by Goethe Institute Moscow, we had parts about Germany as well, and on the website we also have them. For example, here is a play about queer persons in DDR, how they lived, and mostly it's about lesbians and trans people, and it also touches on the question of how kind of trans people of color, for example, could live in these circumstances back then. And we also have kind of similar reflections from the Soviet Union here, which are kind of matching with each other. Yeah, so a lot of things. I won't be showing kind of them in detail, but you can look at them later. I will share the link. So we have this journal, and we have a part with a Zine, which you can download. It's one version is in English, another version is in all languages of the authors. So we decided not to translate everything into Russian, not to reproduce the imperial logics of Russian language, which were present in the Soviet Union, but like let everyone choose which language they want to use. So it's not understandable for any single reader who doesn't know all post-Soviet languages, but it's like an artwork itself. And we have the map of feminist utopias, which was mentioned, which includes statements by different activists on what a feminist future could look like. Yeah, and so this portal, as I mentioned, was created because I had the resources and I wanted to distribute them in a way which would benefit everyone whom I kind of know and who was at the point a part of the network which I assembled within the project, which I started, and then it evolved into all these different kind of little parts, and we had separate people working on separate aspects of the portal. And exhibition, which happened in Russia, was a grand project that we then wrote with some of my friends in Germany and Russia and submitted to Goethe Institute Moscow. And then we got this funding and decided that we will think about representing the content of the portal in different forms. So some things were represented as actual artworks, which were actual artworks. Some things were, for example, contributions to the part of utopias. We sometimes had text, or we had videos, or we had audio files from people, and then we thought how we can show them. Some we projected, for example, quotes in St. Petersburg on the screen. Yeah, maybe I will show this, not to stop on that later. Yeah, so that's the portal, and we had exhibitions, and maybe if it comes to this point, we can also separately speak about them later. But generally, they happened in 10 cities right now, and one is happening in Kaliningrad this weekend. So quite soon, like the latest one. Here is an example how we decided to, for example, speak about feminist utopias through just showing quotations in this kind of fluid form. That's what happened in St. Petersburg. Here we have Omsk and Taliati, kind of two towns in the more or less the Volga-Ural region. And here we supported exhibitions in local smaller spaces. For example, in Taliati, they were able to renovate the community center with the help of the money which they got for the exhibition. So they mostly just did this construction work and then opened the exhibition together with the community center. So that was simultaneously helping them to do this. This is Chelyabinsk. It was a street exhibition, which was then destroyed by local right-wing group. But it's also like an interesting idea because they decided because of COVID also to organize it outdoors. And that's Kazan. That's what Sasha did and curated. And yeah, it touches on different aspects. All of them touch on different aspects, but everywhere we mostly had the posters, which we made together with artists and researchers. And this is like the focus which I was most strongly responsible for. And it was exactly what you mentioned in the beginning. It was about the question of inclusivity of our understanding of history of women's movements. And so it's kind of centered these examples of activists who were active in the late Russian Empire and who were Muslim and at the same time kind of fought for women's rights, or it centers non-heterosexual women in the history of Soviet Union and DDR. And in the context of DDR, there was quite a lot of research done, for example, on the 90s and what happened after the wall has fallen and what kind of leftist activism was present in the former East Berlin and in the former Eastern Germany. And they kind of did, local researchers did a lot of work to find different activists of color who were active in the feminist and leftist circles at the time, and kind of write their biographies. We translated this into Russian, and I think it would be really beautiful to do the same work in the Russian context. Sadly, we didn't have resources for that this year, but maybe in the near future we will have. But we did more like work on assembling the stories which already kind of research into, but no one brought them together. Yeah, this was like one focus, and another big focus you can see here, for example, this part in Kazan with carpets, or here we had this little ducks, and this is a part curated by Kira Shmereva. Kira is not present here today, but she did a whole part on the question of the intersection of discrimination, ableism in general, and discrimination of people with disabilities. And this part involves statements and artworks of different artists and activists with disabilities from Russia and Germany. And I think these are like most significant parts, and other things are just kind of assembled around them. For example, statements on utopias. And yeah, I don't know if I directly answered the question, but I think you more or less get the impulses which we had for the project. And I think I will stop talking because it was a long thing.
Yeah, you did answer the question. I think for the next question, I was thinking, how does intersectionality then feed into the work that you're doing?
Like if I would answer this question personally about this portal in the exhibition, I think it's guided by this logics, and it's also a thing which I'm thinking about quite a lot as a researcher, because if you think about like the Russian kind of space of feminist debates, a Russian language space, and also it's, I think, more present in Russia than in other Russian-speaking parts of the former Soviet Union. We kind of have a lot of articles or statements which criticize the concept of intersectionality, saying that it is not applicable to Russia because it relates to kind of the specific kind of racism and the history of the USA, and kind of you cannot transfer this to Russia. And this is like arguments which people make. And the second line of arguments, which is taken from academic literature, is that intersectionality is a concept already used so much by international organizations, and it's like not radical enough. That's the second argument. And we also have voices in support, but these are not that many. And I think even though a lot of activists identify like intersectional, it's not something really outspoken, and it's not kind of vocabulary that people use generally when they also are involved in feminist activism. And that's why for me it's also kind of important to highlight this, because I think it's an instrument and a way to describe reality, which is really useful if you want to not only to speak about women in general, but to kind of highlight the differences which exist between people and persons with different identities, not only women, and how it all comes into the feminist agenda. And so, yeah, for me, this was also kind of part of this exhibition to speak about this and highlight this. And yeah, I don't know, Sasha, maybe you also have a thought about this, how it is for you.
I think now we have an intersectional paradigm because we live in I'm sorry. We live in globalization world, and we have an internet and internet activism, and Muslim women and Russian women and other people. We have one place, and now I think and I believe that cyber activism and internet activism are all and are maybe maybe make a community and make beyond borders. I think, I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you say, because there's like, it seems that it's like quite, you've said that there's like different kinds of people working on this project also, but like how did everyone come together, or how are you finding people to work with, and how does the like network behind the Feminist Translocalities happen?
I mean, the project is actually more transnational than just transregional within what is called Russian Federation. I could speak about this. That's like networks which were formed through different means. Central Asia, for example, is a connection from my research, because I went to Bishkek and Almaty to make interviews for my master's thesis there, and kind of got together with people personally. Also, even though I knew that certain initiatives exist before, I kind of got these personal connections and started to build bridges also between Central Asia and kind of activists back in Russia. And the context of Ukraine, Belarus, I know people through my like all other activists and NGO projects before, some of them which I had. And also, I mean, you can like through, I don't know, maybe 3 people, and through asking some questions about the context, you can quite easily find new people, because it's actually a network. Like, even though the former Soviet Union is due to kind of imperialist behaviors of Russia is going more and more apart, there is still a certain kind of thing which holds people together, because also they share partly the same language space, or at least feel that the history is more or less mutual. Because, for example, in Georgia, you cannot use Russian language as a tool of conversation, but still there is a kind of interest in each other, which I think is a bit present. And people would, if there is a common aim, and if everyone understands that it's not in the imperial logics what is happening now, I think everyone is ready to cooperate. Yeah, and so you can get contacts from other contacts, but also, I mean, the digital space. It's I think it's if I don't know anyone personally, I can see a new blog or something like that, or a page, and just write and the person, and then we also kind of connect. And I think, I mean, being an NGO project makes it a bit different also, because if it would be purely self-organized, I think it would be also possible to make a similar thing, but maybe it would last longer. And here, when you have a concrete aim, like you have, I don't know, some resources, and you want to make this portal, you want to make a couple of discussions, and then kind of you just accumulate it quite fast, because you just want to kind of do a project as well. So even though I hate NGO economy and the whole kind of context in which I work, I think it also helps to build networks somehow, because you have really clear deadlines and aims, and you just go and do them, even if you do them horizontally and in a conversation. And yeah, I think this partly helped. But also, for example, like finding activists within Russia, it's easy, because at some point an activist called Katerina Maz from Tomsk made a group of contact. It's like a Russian Facebook, made a group, Feminism в регионах, Feminism in the regions. And for example, this group has links to every like page, web page of a feminist group in Russia. And if you don't know someone, you can just go there and find them. And I think this is, at the same time, it makes things visible, because I mean, in a state which is oppressive, being visible is not the best thing always, but if you're like an ally or a friend, it's really useful that something like this exists. So yeah, more or less like that.
I also wanted to ask Sasha, like, how are you finding artists then when you're creating exhibitions?
We have a presentation with portrait and placards and stories from portal, and we have other materials like poems and queer stories, videos, and etc. And I can speak. It's not my sphere. We can find artists and find researchers, and I find a place in Kazan, and I find a team who help me and who support me making exhibition.
So
yeah, but I mean, Diana was not someone whom I found, so
yeah.
I wouldn't put so much like stuff on me. Also, like they know each other. I don't know, like feminist artists, for example, just know each other in Kazakh.
I forgot it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Diana was an illustrator for like the text, for example, about Kazan, about Muslim feminism in Tatarstan and Bashkortostan. And then when we talked with Diana, she was like, okay, I know like 15 more artists who work in the realm of like identity and thinking about what is Tatarstan or being a Tatar and being a feminist, like not 15 maybe, but at least 10. So this is something which I think exists as a network, especially if the city, I mean, even in Moscow, which is giant, mostly in the digital space, activists and artists know who is who if they are all involved in feminism, I think.
Nice. I just had one question about so we were reading about your thoughts on the history of feminism and how it is described using the like kind of waves, that it comes in waves, which is very, as we know, US focused, but sometimes understood as being kind of universal. So when taking into account the history of feminism in your local context, how would you describe its kind of historical formations?
I think we have first wave feminism until Soviet Russia in Russian Empire, and first women groups have meetings in the factory. They made maybe first magazines, discuss political issues and etc. Local history in Tatarstan with Muslim people, first meeting Muslim women on April 1970. And they discuss about hijabi, equality, education, public place for women. And maybe second wave, I think, and it is Soviet ideology and is a standard government feminism for Soviet women. No alternatives, only Soviet ideology. We have a term with is second shift for women. You must be a good mother, a good worker, a good wife, and you can be not yourself. And in Soviet time, we haven't sex education, haven't women's sexuality, and it is maybe strange, but interesting equality ideology in Soviet government, Soviet country. And I think now we have third wave in the world because it is interesting time We have internet. We have we have social sites, and we have community feminism, and we have experience, and we can talk about it and discuss about it, and maybe we work with it.
Cool. Yeah, and I would add like one sentence maybe to that, because what we meant, I think, was having this as a description of also one of the aims of the portal is that this logics, like the logic of waves as such, I mean, it can exist, and the problem is not in that, but the problem is that as it's rooted in the US history, what comes after it is what is described by two researchers from Estonia, Kobak and Marling, as lag discourse, when activists from, for example, Russia start to see themselves as inferior to the activists from the West, which is as a construct, and then kind of perceive this logic of waves as something which is to aim for but never achieved by them, because they say that kind of we're still second wave or something like that, even though if you also think about it rationally, as Sasha said, there is no competition in that, and also we had the same kind of history which was quite long. Still there is this self-perception which comes from, I think, reading a lot of translated or untranslated text from other contexts and not really having a lot of resources here, even though they're more and more appearing and really present. They're still smaller and fewer of them, because also we don't have gender studies faculties. Like one master's is possible to do in St. Petersburg, and that's the only thing which we have. And we don't have resources for translating and writing more, and it's also really hard to get them. There is kind of still a feeling that it's kind of less developed, even though I think we're all on the same page. And when it comes to regions of Russia which are not central, or when it comes to other parts of the former USSR, like Central Asia, there is also the legacy of colonization, which was within the USSR. And then there is the same problem of like internal feeling of inferiority, which is in Russia really present between center and regions. Like you see that everything is really kind of full in Moscow, and it's less somewhere else. And I think this is something which is important to counter, at least in terms of kind of self-wars of activists, because I think it's really important that everyone feels themselves empowered and on the same page. And yeah, that's what we aim for.
Yeah, I think like it just seems in the light of this as well, like your work is so important because you've been in a way like archiving these stories as well, like on the portal, and there's so much information there and so much to read, and it just seems like this amazing resource that's now there. It seems so important that that's happening and available, and because of internet and like from Finland or elsewhere, we can also be reading it. And kind of, I guess, like going from that thought, we've been talking with some of the other people we've been having these conversations with about this question of like how to deal with wanting to bring your work and your politics to the front, and then still somehow maybe stay in the back yourself and not become like the face of, for example, like intersectional feminism in your region or something like this. And we were wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Sasha, maybe you want?
I don't know.
So much space. So initiatives which deal specifically, which like artistic kind of reflections or specific works. So what you mean?
I think like we were speaking with for example
sorry, my internet just lagged while you were asking. So I heard like 50%.
It's fine. I also was mumbling a little bit. We were talking with this Finland-based organization that talk about the representations of queer Islam in Finland, and they were saying how like it's this difficult struggle of wanting to bring their work and politics to the front, but then not become like that the two co-founders become like the face of queer Islam in Finland.
Yeah, I got it.
You know,
yeah, sorry, I didn't hear 50% of the question. I heard only the first part. Yeah, now I get it. And I mean, for me, it was a big challenge. I mean, for me, it's not really a big challenge because I like my own modus of acting is always not coming really to the front. But I think it's something which was important to think about because I think it's, I don't know, like my colleagues who do NGO projects, I think tend to kind of take quite a lot of space because it comes somehow naturally for them, and it's also an NGO project which involves a hierarchy in itself, even though kind of it doesn't exist. And the way we I don't know, decide on questions which are relevant for everyone, there is still this financial responsibility and kind of the thought about you kind of receiving salary for that, so you have to do more. And it's, I mean, this is okay and obviously, but at the same time, I never wanted this to be kind of something which represents myself, because I also think that my own work is like more the assembling work or kind of bringing things together, but not actually creating a lot of content myself. And that's what people do. And I mean, like for like concrete things which I try to do is just when we have a discussion or an exhibition or something like that, I always kind of rewrite people who are actually being there and moderating or like participating or curating, not like that it's all hours or something like that. A lot of things which are happening within the projects which I do, they don't even have like a link to the project, which is really present. It is somewhere in the back because I need to kind of give a report to the grant givers, but I would not put anything there at all if it would be my choice. So we try to kind of keep it really low key and just put the identity of the group or the person who did the thing to the front. And yeah, in general, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just like, for me, it's really natural not to think about how I am represented somewhere, or like what role my kind of personality play and feminist things which I do, whether it's research, for example. When I don't know, when I write articles, I also try to shift more, like show that actually people whom I was talking to kind of those who actually are producing this knowledge and not I am. And so it seems to be natural, but I think it's always something which you might not be doing perfectly, and I also might not be doing this perfectly while I'm thinking that I'm really cool. Maybe I'm not. But the biggest challenge is when you speak about, for example, privileges and location within the former USSR. I'm a person who has like Ukrainian, Belarusian, whatever roots, but I'm white, and I have been born in Smolensk, which is smaller than Moscow, but then I studied in St. Petersburg, and then I get the scholarship to go to Berlin and did my master's there. So I have kind of a lot of privilege in comparison to other persons who come from the countries of the former USSR. And this is something which is also like for me a thing which I don't forget about and try to somehow, if for example certain event or for example if an event is happening which is devoted to Central Asian topics, like the people who would get material resources from that, for example, and who would get represented there are local people, and I could be like technically helping, but I won't be getting honorary for that or like being really present there. So I think this is also like a strategy which I choose to also, if there are material resources, to like relocate them to people who actually kind of are centered in this concrete event or text or whatever.
Nice. I think that we try and do that as well, but sometimes it's kind of can be difficult, or like realizing people don't recognize when we're trying to bring everyone's names forward when we're working together. And good to do that, I think. I think my next question for you is, what does an intersectional feminist future look like to you and to Sasha?
Maybe I have more hopes, because I feel that feminism, intersectional feminism, changes thoughts and lives, people, and because we have different feminisms like Islamic feminism, and we accept it and we respect it. We make world, maybe new world. Maybe I'm an optimistic person, and it is a wide field for different and interesting practice and perspectives. And in Russia, in other countries, I know and I believe it.
Cool. Yeah, for me, I mean, I think it's already happening, and like I don't know, maybe every week I see new kind of interesting texts, for example, appearing, which reflect on the relationships and issues that we have now in Russia, or which we have like in the whole post-Soviet context, which also involves the questions of decolonization, or like reflecting on the logics of coloniality and racism. And this is for me something which I am myself involved in, and it's a really good feeling to see that there is a bigger community being formed around these questions. And maybe, for example, I think it would be really good if in the near future some understanding would appear, for example, what vocabularies to use, because this is also a debate which is relatively new, how in Russian language we would say people of color, we would say like how people would self-describe them to kind of form the context of anti-racist resistance, because in Russian language there is a big confusion, for example, with the word nation, because Naziya it's a non-ethnic term usually in English, but the Soviet Union made it like almost into an ethnic group, and like no one really understands in which terms to describe the experiences which people have. And I think this is something which I really wish to happen, and I would try to facilitate spaces if I have resources where these things can like be thought through, and also like representation of kind of people with non-central Russian identities in feminist activism and in feminist art. I think this is what is happening also. Right now it's kind of growing, and I wish it to grow further. And I think this is like locally for near future maybe my hopes, but in general I think I would live in the world of Donna Haraway, where we would all kind of form solidarities with humans and non-human actors, and just like discrimination what wouldn't exist in any form also when it comes to nature or to animals, or like living and non-living natures, we describe it, and we will just have this kind of joy from just being with others, whether they're like us or not like us. But I don't know, maybe I won't live up to this. So it's okay if I just see some decolonial activism in Russian language.
Oh, what a wonderful future. I want that too. I love it though that you're like saying that it's already partly happening. I'm like, that's true, and it's just something that's so easy to forget when sometimes working with intersectionality feels like you're battling windmills and they're just coming at you. all the time. But also really interesting to hear about the language, because I think it's so similar in Finland. And we, even though we work mainly in English language, we have to keep thinking about the context we're in and think about the Finnish words and how they're changing and how we work with them, even though we're working in English. And I think that it's also important, probably it's also important in like all contexts, to think about the terms and the languages in this moment. We had this last question of what are your own plans and hopes and dreams for the, maybe like for the next 5 years or few years or next year, however you want to look at it. It would be lovely to hear both of your visions and hopes.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm really bad with like planning for more than 2 months in advance, I think. But I don't know. I will try. I mean, I think like what I said in the previous question was partly what I also think about and believe in, because like both my academic work and this NGO work and like things which I do just like this, writing for some kind of Russian language resources. I think it's all more or less about the topic of how to kind of make this feminist as a first thing, and the general reality more reflexive towards the questions of racism and coloniality. And this is like something which I'm interested in doing further, and also maybe unpacking more local feminist histories, which not centered on central places, but are more dispersed and localized elsewhere. And I think I will like what, I don't know what the future brings in terms of possibilities and resources, but as long as I have them, I will do things like this, I think. And yeah, I don't know. I'm also like writing my own stuff, like poetry and prose, which is like, I don't know, a bit of theory fiction, or like generally feminist, and also reflexive of me as a white person in Russia and a feminist. And maybe I would prefer to find some more time on that and do more of this, because now, I don't know, I always do some organizing work, but we'll see. Organizing work is also not bad. And yeah, I want the war in Ukraine to stop. Maybe this would be nice, and also some other wars. And this is not my plan, but this would be cool in the next 5 years, maybe. But maybe in the next 2 years, also good. And yeah, that's it. Maybe the pandemic would be over. That's also good. And then we can plan more and come to Helsinki, for example.
Yes.
Because
I don't know. I know I will study MA in Moscow on the program Muslim Wars in Russia, or maybe visual culture. I don't know. And I don't know how I will live, because I live in Russia, and we have unstable political situation, and it's so scary and difficult. But I know I do more works, maybe academic works and text and organization works, maybe exhibition, maybe festival, I don't know.
yeah, maybe also like about the portal, I didn't have a lot of time for this right now, but I'm slowly thinking in how to develop it into something which sustains itself without me sustaining this. And we're thinking about transforming it into a page which has like the self-publishing function, where you can just upload things and just publish them. And there is already Sigma in Russian, which is a really nice portal, so I didn't want to create like a second portal which is similar, because Sigma also publishes quite a lot of feminist resources. So I'm still thinking what could be like the concrete focus of this, so that people would concentrate only on the topics which are relevant for us. But yeah, I think maybe by the end of 22 we will have some updates on how it's going to look like. And we also have a lot of like offline things planned for 2022 within Feminist Translocalities as a project. For example, we will have a campaign, like a feminist summer camp in Georgia for activists from different countries of the former USSR. And if it will work out with COVID, I think it would be really good to be there offline and yeah, maybe also kind of think about how the project could develop further. We'll see.
Thank you. That's lovely to hear that the project is going to be going on. And maybe, yeah, I really hope that you can have a summer camp offline. That sounds like a total dream right now.
Yeah, also, I mean, that was, for example, like friends of mine who are parts of anarchist networks in Russia. They were organizing Father Frost Against as a festival in Helsinki for several times. It's like kind of a place where anarchists from Russia could be without having Russian authorities around them. And it also involved a lot of feminist activists who could come from St. Petersburg, mostly because it's close, but still it was nice. And it's not happening for 2 years because of pandemic. So this is also, I mean, when it's over, I think it would be possibly possible to really come to Helsinki because of an event happening there as well, which are organized by some people from our like platform network. We'll see. Maybe it happens.
Yeah, it would be really nice to have you both in Helsinki. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was really lovely.
Yeah, thank you. It's I mean, for the project as such, I think it's a really nice initiative. Also, I mean, the exhibition, but also like the online spaces which you created, and I think it's really important that you made it like transnational or translocal and raised these topics. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, sorry for my internet.
That's fine. Internet is always unstable, friend. We're gonna say goodbye to the people who've been following this, and then say another goodbye to you two. So we'll just now end the live stream and say bye to everyone who's been listening, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.